Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Natalia Moczulska, and this is the news. Day 357 of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The second session of NATO defense ministers' meetings was held in Brussels today. In addition to supporting Ukraine, the topic of the talks was also the strengthening of the alliance's eastern flank in the wake of the war in Ukraine, which is the biggest security crisis in Europe since the end of World War II. The Ukrainian General Staff says Russia will use aircraft and helicopters to support the ground offensive. Russia is mobilizing its air force and amassing it near the border with Ukraine. So far, Russian Air Force participation in the battle has been limited. Long-range missiles, artillery, and infantry have been used more often for attacks. Today is the meeting of Ramstein, Ukraine's military support group. The 54 partner countries will soon provide us with the necessary tools to defend our country. We have received confirmation from our partners that we will receive more weapons, more anti-aircraft systems, more tanks, more artillery guns and missiles. According to experts, the Russian offensive will soon gain momentum, which is why it is now so important to quickly support the West.
I welcome the new pledges of support made by NATO allies, including more heavy weapons and military training. This is critical. Ukraine has a window of opportunity to tip the balance, and time is of the essence.
President Joe Biden's administration is preparing a new $10 billion military aid package for Ukraine. The scope of the support is unlikely to include F-16 fighter jets, which Kiev is calling for. In addition to arms deliveries, Washington will also announce a new sanctions package on Russia.
The Ukrainians have really done remarkably well as a result of some of the things that allies and partners are doing to provide security assistance. But, you know, in terms of this alliance, in terms of NATO, you've heard me say a number of times, I've never seen this alliance this united, despite the fact that we've been dealing with a number of challenges throughout the year.
The European Commission is also preparing another package of sanctions on Russia. The European restrictions will hit Russian trade and military technology exports for the 10th time. But for the first time, their scope will be expanded to include Iranian entities. So far, revenues from Russian fossil fuel exports have shrunk by almost half under the pressure of Western sanctions. The Russian economy is retreating under the pressure of 9 sanctions. To keep the pressure strong, we are discussing a draft 10th package. When the package is implemented, it will cost Russia 11 billion euros. Among other things, we are proposing export restrictions on many electronic components used in Russian weapons systems, such as drones, missiles, helicopters. National Defense Minister Mariusz Błaszczak announced that the armored coalition countries have managed to complete a battalion of Leopard 2A4 tanks, which will soon be sent to Ukraine. Norway, Canada, and Spain have joined Poland. Particularly important from the Polish point of view are 2 initiatives that we have joined, and that is the initiative related to the construction of joint NATO armament warehouses. We are interested in building such warehouses, and now we are also expanding with the United States. We are building such arms warehouses in Poland. Meanwhile, President Andrzej Duda with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg today discussed the security of NATO's eastern flank. This is one of many meetings between the Polish president as part of a diplomatic offensive related to the war in Ukraine, especially on the eve of the anniversary of the invasion and the expected Russian campaign in Donbass. Our hopes and expectations from the Polish side are new security plans and new plans for our part of the alliance, not only for Poland, but also for the Baltic states, for the other countries of the eastern flank from the south. Readiness plans, which will mean that in the event of any attack on any NATO countries on the eastern flank, the reaction of the alliance, which boils down to the implementation of Article 5, will be simply immediate. The occupation authorities in Donbass, loyal to Moscow, are systematically deporting children deep into Russian territory. According to experts, this practice is a blatant violation of the Geneva Convention, as the purpose of the resettlement is to indoctrinate Ukrainian society.
A report released today by Yale University's Humanitarian Research Lab through the department-supported Conflict Observatory Program details Russia's systematic government-wide efforts to permanently relocate thousands of Ukraine's children to areas under Russian government control via a network of 43 camps and other facilities. In many cases, Russia purported to temporarily evacuate children in Ukraine under the guise of a free summer camp, only to later refuse to return the children and to cut off all contact with their families. Such actions obviously will have serious long-term implications on these children's development. The network of facilities which these children are sent is vast, spanning from Russia-occupied Crimea, across Russia itself, from the Black Sea region to its far east.
Today, the UN appealed to Ukraine's donors to raise more than $5 billion in humanitarian support for Kyiv. The funds will finance food, healthcare, and other essential assistance for those most in need. Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki announced during a visit to Huta Stalowa Wola a decision to invest 600 million zloty in its development. A further 1.2 billion zloty is planned, which will also go to Polish plants and weapons factories. The additional funds for the arms industry will increase the production of modern military vehicles for the Polish army.
Stalowa
Wola is producing the Crabs. Crabs are super modern, mobile howitzer cannons that perform very well in Ukraine on the modern battlefield. Today we have increased the order to 48 units, but the Stalowa Wola Steelworks is capable of producing 50 Crabs a year. We are increasing production to the maximum in order to produce for domestic needs for the Polish army. These will be crabs also prepared for export, because this is a product that is very desirable today around the world. But not only that, as part of the consortium, it is also worth mentioning borsuk, or in English, badgers. Borsuks are very modern combat floating infantry vehicles on composite rubber tracks, the kind that can be said to be among the best in the world. And here also in Stalowa Wola, we are developing production capacity, thanks to the capital that flows from the Polish state budget, up to 100 units a year. So the Crabs, secondly the borsuk, also the rack mortars, which are very good mortars, upgraded by Polish engineers. We are also increasing their production thanks to the Polish nation's recapitalization. A Dutch F-35 fighter jet that recently intercepted 3 Russian military aircraft near Poland was put on display in Malbork earlier today. The Dutch jet, along with several others stationed in Poland, helped prevent a potential intrusion into Polish airspace. The incident occurred on Monday, February 13th, when the unidentified Russian aircraft approached the Polish NATO area of responsibility from Kaliningrad, a Russian Baltic coast enclave between NATO and European Union members, Poland and Lithuania. A Russian Il-20M Kut-A reconnaissance aircraft escorted by 2 Su-27 flankers were spotted and intercepted by the Dutch F-35s. The Dutch F-35s escorted the formation from a distance and handed over the escort to NATO partners, the Netherlands Defense Ministry said in a statement. Poland's Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki expressed concern over Russian provocations on Tuesday, February 14th. The tragic event in Przewodów, as well as what took place several days ago in the Romanian sky, as well as yesterday's incident, show that Putin and the Kremlin will continue more provocations, will test our vigilance, will check the coherence and the unity of the transatlantic alliance. As for the risks in Russian provocations, I think that everyone must realize and must be aware of the Russian threat. Unfortunately, it will last until this conflict in Ukraine ends with Ukraine's victory. In response to the threat, 8 Dutch F-35s were stationed in Poland for February and March. The Russian Defense Ministry has not commented on the incident. The number of earthquake victims in Turkey and Syria has exceeded 37,000. People are still being extracted alive from under the rubble, but some rescue teams have already suspended the search. Polish firefighter rescuers who went to the earthquake-affected region shortly after the incident have returned from Turkey and in total rescued 12 people. Mining rescuers from the Polish mining group are still helping at the site. Every hour, every day, it was to be or not to be, life or death of people who were under the rubble of collapsed buildings. We saw that we had well-prepared, professional, and very experienced rescuers. They had to move immediately, and they moved immediately. They got to Turkey the same day and proceeded. I want to say that what you have done, I say this for our officers, for our heroes, is an extraordinary thing. You saved 12 lives, including 3 small children. Only because of you, these people are alive and will live. You have shown extraordinary bravery, courage, sacrifice, generosity, and utmost professionalism.
Nie spodziewaliśmy się jeszcze tydzień temu, że będziemy.
We did not expect just a week ago that we would be the cause of so much commotion upon our return. We were just doing our job to the best of our ability, and each of us tried the best we could to make this work bear fruit. The effects were such that we saved 12 lives, something we didn't even dream of before we returned. Our minimum plan was to save at least one person. This was accomplished 1,200%. We are incredibly satisfied with this.
Z tego niesamowicie zadowoleni.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Please stay tuned for Poland Daily Weather, Poland Daily Business, and some of our other programs. But for me, it's have a wonderful evening.